Hello, Rock Breath.
Hey, Rock Breath, how are you?
I forgot to tell Ben, one of our most devoted listeners, who I know
Renzo,
since kindergartner.
It's live, okay?
I'm waiting for it to pop up. Yep, I see it.
Her dad was at Columbia when you were there. 63 to 67, played ball for the Lions, hated the coach, and did track, and now he's a retired ophthalmologist.
God bless him. What was his name, sir?
Bernard Fowler.
God bless him. God bless him.
He can't remember his first year housing. He lived off campus the other 3 years.
Yeah, the housing was pretty dismal.
It's up, Judah. Everyone's asking if Lewis got a haircut. No one's asking me, Remso, how did you get so handsome? Hard work and natural talent.
Or what about how are the cats?
Thank you, Ben. I appreciate it.
How are the cats?
You know, the cats are a non-issue.
You have cats?
I have multiple.
Really?
Yeah.
Maggie the cat.
I've got a calico who's a midget, and I've got a large black Maine Coon who thinks he's a dog.
Ben's, how did we lose Lindsay?
Hold on 1 second. I have to. Something's beeping in the other room. I want to make sure whatever it is off.
Pretty sure the second one is illegal, Remzo.
Ben Stein is a cat person.
Shh, Lewis. You already got me in trouble with Liberty, Lewis. You don't need to get me in trouble with animal control.
And yes, everybody's a fan of is a Siamese cat lover, just like everybody's a fan of a hyperallergenic dog.
These cookies were made for me by a very lovely, charming woman.
Thank you. Okay, we're starting in a minute, guys and gals.
Lindsay, you're very, very kind to be on our show. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. You're very kind for having me on again.
It's our honor, madam. Our honor.
She's live from the Pottery Barn. Is that the right store? Am I using a?
It's Restoration Hardware. I said Pottery Barn, but it's really Restoration Hardware.
It's actually neither. You're both wrong.
IKEA.
You're wrong too. It's actually from Bear Paint.
Sure, Pottery Barn is very nice.
Okay, you guys ready to start?
I'm ready. No. I need a glass of water, sir.
Okay, Rems, I'm going to you with the breaks.
Sounds good.
Let's do an all-night show
on
tonight
iTunes.
that goes on until tomorrow morning.
Like
Anyways,
I'm not emotionally ready for that, Ben.
Okay.
Okay, I want to welcome everybody back to The World According to Ben Stein. I'm Judah Friedman, your moderator. Joining us tonight is, of course, Mr. Esoteric himself, Lewis. Fine. Welcome, Lewis.
Welcome, Lewis.
And of course, Remzo Martinez, Parler's Director of Outreach, Podcast Extraordinaire. And coming back to us again is Lindsay Marie from Indiana. I won't say the exact location. Welcome back, Lindsay Marie.
Thanks for having me again.
And she is on Parler at Lindsay Marie. And you could all find us on YouTube at The World According to Ben Stein. You could also find us on Facebook at The World According to Ben Stein. And now you can find us on iTunes at The World According to Ben Stein, soon to be many other places like Spotify and all those things Remzo and Lindsay, you kids seem to be using these days to listen to podcasts that I am very unfamiliar with. But anyways, I want to welcome everybody. And of course, the man of every hour, America's humble servant, Benjamin Jeremy Stein. Welcome aboard, sir.
Good all-American chocolate chip cookie made for me by a woman who was a concentration camp inmate and could tell you a lot about how dictatorship works. And
we should have her on one night. But Ben, you wrote a really great piece for Parler where it's lessons and guidance and prayer for America right now. I'll read it out loud. Number 1, we are not afraid. 2, we shall overcome. 3, we love America and no one is going to make us ashamed of the America that we love. 4, we will always stand up for the Constitution, the most wonderful document ever struck off at one time by the brain and purpose of man, as Gladstone says,
one of the great geniuses of all time.
A long time ago. 5, we respect all Americans of all races. 6, we do not excuse violence or ignore it. 7, we will never give up. 8, the media is not going to push us around. 9, we will be guided not by the media, but by our own conscience. 10, We will never apologize for believing in God Almighty. And a lot of people quoted that what should have been number one, but you saved the best for last, and that was, the best one. And but I want to welcome everybody to the World According to Ben Stein, and we are facing treacherous times right now, and somebody like Ben has navigated many a treacherous time. And as the nation faces lockdowns again, and the nation faces just total not knowing, Ben, how do we get through this? What is some of your humble opinion as a man that has, lived?
We put our head down and we pray and we ask God to help us, and we ask God every morning to tell us what he wants us to do by guiding the day for us. And we pray for the strength to carry out his will for us. And we try to do useful, purposeful things each and every day. And we try to make a living and not be dependent upon the state for our living. We try to be kind to the people around us whom we love. We try to teach them reverence for God and for the Constitution of the United States of America. We are good to very, very good to our parents if they're still living. If you're blessed enough to have living parents, you're very, very good to them. You're very, very good to your children. You form a little, as Mr. Bush 43 would say, nuclear unit of decency and respect for law and order and for the Lord God Almighty, Lord of hosts. And you go on from there each day, day by day.
And that's very profound. And I just want to bring this up before I get to everybody. Everybody here, a lot of us are in a different state. Lewis is in a different mind and state. But Remzo is in Washington. Lindsay is in Indiana. And people across America don't realize that lockdowns have been in different places. So we've been in California. Our gyms, things that haven't really affected me have been shut down. So the gym, sadly, is a place that doesn't affect me. I don't go to movie theaters, and we haven't been able to dine in. And
wait, Judy, you and I used to eat at restaurants
all the time. So that affects us, yes. But we haven't been able to dine in for the better part of 10 months, except for, I believe, 2 or 3 weeks. But, and I realize your governor, Newsom everybody's now going to be on a sort of lockdown. And once again, I was going to the store, and I know a lot of people are, and something that affects me is this great toilet paper shortage. Not to add some levity, but that's what—
They're still having that?
Yes. Go in Targets in California, you cannot find toilet paper again on the shelf, except for the Target brand, oddly enough.
That's like sandpaper.
And it's called Up and Up, which—
You're kidding. It's called— No. It is really called Up and Up.
Yes, that's the Target brand, which in this case it should be. Anyways, you get what I'm saying. But we're all affected by this, and it's really frightening. And Lewis, I'll set you off because you have a kid, and you have a kid that's being homeschooled at this point. How do you deal with it?
Not by me.
What?
I said not by me. Then she'd be in real trouble.
Right. But she has to sit at home. She has to. I mean, is
not good?
Is the disease worse than the cure?
You mean is the cure
worse than the disease? Yes, my bad.
I've said this before. I think that children are going to be, they have already been traumatized in a way we can't fully express. They themselves can't fully express. And as for PTSD en masse, there's not a doubt in my mind about that. If you look at, I hate saying the word, data, it shows that suicides are up, that prescriptions for antidepressants are up, that
way up for that.
Yeah. And it affects your sense of time. It affects your productivity. It affects everything. And ultimately, whether one is religious or not, it does affect your sense of hope, because there's a difference between this world and the world to come. And in this world, when there is ambiguity in some respects and a great deal of misinformation in other respects, it nonetheless is difficult. It is difficult to know what to believe, whom to trust, and when this is going to end, because what started as something that seemed serious but manageable has become the longest 2 weeks in our lives.
You're completely right. I mean, it was 2 weeks, and 2 weeks we're 8.5 months in. Remzo.
I've been wearing sweatpants for like 7 months straight.
That's because
And
you
like-
reek of unsuccess.
I'd like to disagree with that, but
Not
at the
failure,
same
not
time-
failure.
Anyway, it's no, I think Lewis makes great points when he's not intentionally making bad ones. He's absolutely right. This is the longest 2 weeks of our life, and it's getting to the point where, you know, this is the first year a tradition with my brother and I has ended. We would go to comic book conventions in DC, big ones. You know, wrestling stars would go there, movie stars would go there. It would be fun, and it was canceled for this year. And now they're talking about canceling it for 2021. And you know, the other night we still have indoor dining options in Virginia available for at least the next couple of weeks, we hope. I got dinner with a friend located outside of Alexandria, and we found ourselves watching football. And I can tell you, I'm not a sports guy. I don't watch football. But what I enjoyed watching about it was that it was real, it was now, and it was on screen. And the biggest casualty of this whole experience has been culture. The things that used to bring us together, the things that used to go ahead and take more of a proceeding in our lives, because it was the thing that brought us most joy. When you close down movies, despite how much we say we hate Hollywood, everyone wants to talk about the next Avengers movie or the next Star Wars. Everyone wants to root for their favorite sports team over their favorite political team. People need to go out and engage with each other. People need to go out and see that there's more that brings them together than what sets them apart. And through the death of culture in the United States, what people have been forced to do is to take extreme sides on anything to have any degree of social interaction. I used to think that I was an extremely introverted person, but it wasn't until I started finding anything and everything possible to go actually have some type of social interaction of just people, whether it was going an extra trip to the grocery store to at least see a cashier. I mean, little things like that have really made me realize don't take any of this for granted. And if it weren't for the free market, if it weren't for a voluntary association, if it weren't for giving people the right to actually have enjoyment in their life, life would not be worth living. Your mic's...
I'm pointing at our lovely, charming Lindsay Marie and wondering if she's going to get a chance to talk.
Of course you will. We're a democracy.
Okay.
And Lindsay is up.
So in Indiana, you'd probably be surprised, but we've had some pretty strict regulations since all this happened. I'm guessing within a week, we'll probably go down to a full lockdown where you can't leave or go anywhere other than maybe the store, between certain hours. Most of the restaurants have been able to operate at some capacity, but because it's been so low, most places have had to shut their doors. A lot of people down here, like everywhere else, are also out of work. So it's been kind of similar to what you'd see in other states, even though it is typically a red state with a Republican governor. And life is definitely a lot different for me now than it was at the beginning of this year. I used to travel all the time. I used to do all kinds of events, and I've pretty much been stuck here since I came home in March and haven't left. And it's interesting because a lot of the things that I wanted to do that would normally take place in person, I found ways to somehow do through technology online. And I take improv classes at Second City and Upright Citizens Brigade. And so I am always with strangers on the internet doing improv for hours a week. And it sounds kind of weird, but seeing all these other people from different walks of life every week is somewhat comforting. And it's a social interaction, even though it's not in person, but it still is something better than sitting here by myself all the time, not really getting to do much.
And
well, I'm very lucky because, in every way, but as Judah very well knows, I have quite a big house. I don't deserve it. I probably will not be able to afford to have it much longer, but I do now. And I belong to a 12-step program. Our meetings have been canceled by the state and in an indirect way, but we're able to have them at my house, and my wife's in my house, and that is an incredible, unbelievable blessing. So, otherwise, I really think I would lose my mind. And I'm with you, Rem. So I've gotten to the point where I will think of things to buy that I can't even remotely need or afford just to go to the grocery store and just to see from this to this of the people, other people shopping. I mean, it's really, as my wife would say, it's heart rendering.
And Ben, you were on the road before.
Constantly. I think I was as busy a speaker as just about anyone in the whole country. That was starting to slow down already because I had offended a great many people by explicitly saying I believed in God. And people, you cannot imagine how much that offended many people. But anyway, I used to travel constantly, and that's gone way down. Last summer, wifey and I and other people who work for us used to go on regular pilgrimages to our houses in North Idaho. We don't do that anymore, and I'm sure I'll have to sell them fairly soon. But it's been squeezing, and I don't like it. I do not like it at all.
But you just brought up a great point before we go to break. You and Remzo both shared something. You find stuff to buy, and I was on the road today, so I made my pilgrimage to Target, and then I made my pilgrimage to a different store. And I was driving. I said to my girlfriend, I said, there's so many cars on the road, but everything is shut down. Is everybody just doing the same thing we are? Like finding like weird.
Very good question.
Like finding weird, because if every business in LA is closed, almost the whole industry is shut down. Corporations are shut down. Where are people going? I want to actually
dentist. Going to the dentist.
Right, they're finding people. They're finding things to go to. And if you just tuned in, you are listening to The World According to Ben Stein. We are minus a Ben tonight. He is stuck somewhere up in Big Bear, and we put a search party out for him, but we will find him soon. Remzo, can you please tell people where they could find us?
Boychuk, use the smoke signals. We will find you, hopefully. But if you're here with us right now, please go ahead, hit that bell. Go ahead and make sure that you can subscribe to us and get notifications whenever we're about to go live for a new episode of the show. Of course, across the other social media, you could find the show at The World According to Ben Stein, but more actively throughout your very hectic day. If you want some solace, you can go ahead and find Ben Stein and crew at Ben Stein on Parler. That's at Ben Stein on Parler.
Thank you.
And
I have a question.
Yes.
How would I get teeth as white as Lindsay's?
Good lighting.
Well, good. Ben, we'll go to we'll do what everybody else is doing now. We'll go to the dentist and
exactly where I was going.
And you could use my free cleanings because I have given him so many clients that he's offered me so many free cleanings. Ben, it is my honor and privilege.
You're very kind, sir. Very kind.
One of my free cleanings. I don't want to welcome everybody back to The World According to Ben Stein. And here's the thing that I just want to get into, because I think really what they're doing right now is boxing people in. And Ben, one of your big things that you've constantly spoken about for a long time is people do not like to be pushed around.
You bet. I went to law school with one of the smartest, amazing guys in the world, big liberal, genius, brave man, wounded, fighting in horrible combat in Vietnam, John W. Kecker, an amazingly impressive human being. And he was the one who told me a long time ago when I was being sued by Joan Rivers that he said, you're pushing Ben around. People don't like to be pushed around, and we're going to hit you back if you don't stop this pushing. And it worked incredibly well, and I have borne it in mind ever since. People do not like to be pushed around.
So what do we do, Ben? That's the question. Is as we've brought this up before, you see people looting, you see people rioting, you see people at a Joe Biden celebration rally, and you see Trump supporters getting the crap kicked out of them, and that's okay. But they're not put in prison, or they're not. But if you walk down the streets of our neighborhood, $500 fine without a mask. At what point are civilians?
Wait a minute. Back up, please. Just a minute, sir. Sir. Just for being on the sidewalk?
Yes.
Without a mask?
Yes.
I never even heard of that. I live in the same city you live in, although.
It's because you don't.
You were joking, right?
No, I'm being dead serious. Lewis can attest to this. The signs are flashing all over Beverly Hills.
Lewis, is this true?
It's as true as it's true. It's true.
Yes, it's very true.
You live in Beverly Hills, do you not, sir?
I do.
So if you and
I rent.
I'm sorry, sir.
I rent.
if
What? I don't want people to think I'm some kind of macher.
you mean to tell me that if, I don't know how far away you live from me, but if you and I were to go for a walk down to meet each other midway between us, and I were not wearing a mask, I could get a fine?
Yes, the same way you could
Yes.
get one for smoking a cigarette in Beverly Hills, you could also get a fine for not wearing a mask. And
This horrifies me.
And people need to know this, but my question is, at what point do the people fight back? And I mean, I'll go to Remzo first. Remzo, how, you being of a different generation and Lindsay being of a generation of us, where is there a fight? I mean, do you see a pushback?
No.
Questions are
Well said.
No.
I do.
At least here.
I absolutely do. I see it coming in the form of litigation. As soon as they close down the churches here in Los Angeles and in California, your own self, my own self, this fat old man, me, sued Governor Newsom about for violating our rights to worship. The interesting thing, the way California works, because the courts are closed because of COVID, it hasn't even been heard at the very first stages of it. But I believe I sued literally within 24 hours of this happening, of the shutdown happening. And we have to sue more. Lawsuits are great things. When you're really serious about them, they're great things.
Lawsuits are a great thing, but it's also, when those people walk into if 100 people or 200 people just decide, you know what, I'm going to jump over the barrier, because BLM and Antifa are jumping over barriers and they don't give a crap. But us legal citizens can't just say on Thanksgiving, you know what, I'm going to have 100 people in my house. Screw you. Lindsay, do you see that as a possibility, especially you being in a more reddish state than obviously we are? I mean, you're not just red compared to us. You're like flaming red. I mean, are there people that are just is there a chance?
Oh, for sure. I think most people in Indiana probably are going to still celebrate the holidays. It may not be on the same scale as normal, but they're still going to have 10, 12, 14 people in their homes, which I know in other areas is technically a violation of the law now. But people are going to get fed up. There's a lot of other things that are happening in the world that are making them angry and scared, and this is going to keep adding on to it. And you lock people up in their homes for so much time, eventually all that energy is going to come to a head, and they're going to do something about it. They're going to say, screw this, I'm my own person, I'm going to do what I want. They're getting angry, they're going to start rioting. It can't go on like this and expect people to just smile and sit there and take it over and over. Eventually people will push out.
Well, I question whether our kind of people push out with riots. I mean, my sister, big time liberal, lives in New York, rich, of course, is a big time liberal. I told her that there had been a Trump rally down the street from me, and she said, well, are you going to leave town and go to your house down in the desert the way you did when you were afraid of, as she called it, Antifa? And I said, no, of course not. Republicans don't riot. They don't set fires. They don't loot. That's not what Republicans do. But the left would like us to believe that Republicans in groups are dangerous. That's not true. They're not dangerous at all. That's the incredibly crucial, scary part about what's happening now. The law-abiding, quiet, peace-loving people supposedly lost the election, supposedly. The people who favor, or at least do not condemn violence, they won the election. That's very scary.
So I have a question for you. Why don't Republicans have a spine?
That's not, sir, that's not a matter of having a spine.
No.
It's a matter of rioting. It does not take a spine to riot.
I didn't say rioting. I said saying we're not going to take this and on Thanksgiving.
What do we do? I wrote an article a long time ago when the O.J. Simpson verdict came out. And I said, if he had been found guilty, there would have been riots. But conservative, peace-loving Republicans don't riot. They leave town and they move to North Idaho or somewhere like that. And I think something like that happens, not as far as North Idaho, which is very far away, but somewhere where they're fine, loving, peaceful people. and then the violent people move out there too, so they have to move farther and farther out. I won't live long enough to see that space all used up, but it's a. I mean, I think people will leave, and I think there has to be more and more and more lawsuits. Now, will the Biden people, if they are ever inaugurated, will they swear in enough judges to totally invalidate the law? They'll try.
But Ben, you wrote about something that I'm posting tomorrow, and I don't know, and I'll go to Lewis after this.
You had a subject and a verb. But
I'm sorry, I'm that's just my style,
Okay.
and I'm a subject and a verb type of guy. And you wrote, and the reason I brought up the toilet paper thing was because it got really angry. It just made me angry. It made me realize what we've been sitting through. And me as a solid citizen.
Funny thing is that you bring that up in connection with toilet paper, but okay, go ahead.
No, because it's just because everybody's got.
And that was the day Lewis and Judah lost their minds.
It was no, but Lewis is a huge fan of the movie Falling Down, right? One day,
it's a good movie.
Is sitting.
I'm sorry, say again, Lewis.
Falling Down by Joel Schumacher, starring Michael Douglas.
And one day, Michael Douglas is on the highway, and he's sitting on the 405 traffic, Ben, and he gets out of his car, and he's had enough, and he goes on a rampage. And Lewis, I know we're not going to do that, of course, but you could see that. I mean, yes, Lewis, go ahead.
It's a very good movie, in spite of Joel Schumacher, because he had a deserved reputation for camp, but I would say the 60 to 70% of the film is very solid, and Robert Duvall, per usual, is very good. The irony of all this is that the people who are having all the fun are in jail. So unlimited. I don't think
it's much fun being in jail, my young friend.
Well, I'm not saying it's an issue of comparison. They're having unlimited sex. They get to work out.
What? I don't think they are. I don't think they do get to work out anymore. I think they changed that.
Well, it depends. Depends.
They don't get to work out, but they get unlimited sex.
How can they possibly have unlimited sex? That part.
I'm sorry. I wasn't. I'm not Kafka in the penal colony. I'm just offering some anecdotes about one's time in prison. Going Straight was not a movie I was involved in, although I have remarked to Mr. Hoffman it is underrated in his oeuvre. So you get to work out. You can be politically incorrect. You can self-segregate. And
that happens all the time.
You can engage in the underground economy and have unlimited sex.
I frankly, with all due respect,
you never have to say with all due respect with Lewis, man.
But I mean, I think my own life, even though I am tortured and tormented by living in a new police state and also by terrible fear of the future, I don't think it's like being in jail or in prison. Not even a little.
No, I'm saying they're having more fun than we are.
I guarantee. I don't. Well, okay.
I would
like the
agree
life
with that.
You what, Lindsay?
I would 100% disagree with the fact that they're having fun. If you talk to anyone who's behind bars, they're more scared than they've ever been because, number one, behind bars, you cannot socially distance. You don't have masks. You can't wash your hands all the time. You're in a dorm with 60 other guys that have been on the outside that are potentially bringing COVID in. People are dying behind bars because they're getting COVID from people that are being brought in. If you talk to anyone behind bars, they'll say this is the scariest they've ever been in their entire lives right now.
Right. I was under the presumption, though, that facts would not interfere with humor.
Okay. Let's get this straight.
You're under arrest, Lewis.
House arrest.
Let me get into Lewis's mind, which is scary for a second, and what I think Lewis is referring to, Ben. Lewis is referring to, go back to your days. You guys were having fun rioting, and you guys were not rioting, but having fun at the rallies and the anti-war events and make love and not war. I think we were
really having fun.
I my head hurts by trying to get into Lewis's mind and brain, but I think that's what he was referring to in the sense that the people on the streets that are celebrating, that have they're out, they're and about, they're getting their exercise in. I don't think he was really referring to them being in jail as the fun part. He was referring to the acts of what they were doing and then getting in jail and getting bailed out the next day because there's no bail as the fun part. But I could be wrong.
Let me make it more concrete and serious. It's easier to get a tattoo in prison right now than it is to go to a tattoo parlor on Sunset Boulevard with cash in hand and say, "I'd like a tattoo, please."
Let's talk about something real, which is
we should stop paying taxes.
Yeah, that's a good point.
In a very scary new America, in which there has been, and Judah, if this is something you want to talk about another time, I don't mind you cutting me off. It's fine. We're living in a state in which there has been an attempted and seemingly successful coup d'etat against the Constitution. And it is a very scary situation. I feel like my head is being held underwater all the time. I am genuinely terrified all the time about what's going on. And with the greatest possible respect to you, my dear friend Lewis, friend and neighbor Lewis, I think that's far worse than issues about comparisons with prisons. We are living in an America that we have never seen before, in which seemingly the provisions of the Constitution seemingly were violated to install a seemingly new administration who are people who seemingly do not agree with the Constitution and do not believe that law and order are important parts of American life.
But that's possible. That's possible only because we have a populace that is unfortunately ignorant about, through no fault of their own by and large, because the schools don't teach it, the culture doesn't inculcate it, and no one seems to have any emotional attachment to it. They are illiterate concerning the Constitution. And I'll come back to the point about prison. There are jailhouse lawyers that know more about the Constitution and rights and habeas corpus and take it more seriously, because I don't believe everyone in prison is genuinely guilty of a crime, though they've been convicted or they've arranged a plea bargain. But there's something wrong. There's something wrong with this situation that goes far beyond irony or my feeble attempt at humor.
Very feeble. And on that note, if you just tuned in, you are listening to The World According to Ben Stein. You can find us, Remzo. Where can you find us? All the different places.
You can find us all over the place. But Boychuk, if you're listening to this, please, there's toilet paper back home. You can go back. You will be safe. But until then, please, folks, if you're watching this on YouTube, hit the subscribe bell. That way you'll go ahead and catch us in their merry hijinks whenever there's a new live episode on several days a week. That way you'll get right in your inbox. Other than that, yeah, if you like Nixon, you can go ahead and take care of that too. But please, on the other social media platforms, go ahead and follow us at The World According to Ben Stein. If you want to engage with Ben and the crew on a daily basis, head over to Parler for Fun at Ben Stein. That's at Ben Stein on Parler. And please, before I forget, you can go ahead and listen to the audio version of the show. We're on iTunes, and we'll be expanding to Google Play, Stitcher, Spotify, you name it. The internet works in amazing ways. So you have every way under the sun to engage and learn and laugh at the same time.
Thank you so much, Remzo, and welcome everybody back to The World According to Ben Stein. And here's the thing, by the way, for the people listening on YouTube, everybody here has different opinions on different things. The difference between us and them is that we're not going to walk away hating each other. And this is what conversation and discourse is about. But Ben, I want to bring up something to you, is this, and I'll get to everybody. I was thinking a lot about the Bob Seger song, that line in it, surrounded by strangers that I thought were my friends. And I couldn't think more of anything. Like he could have been writing about the House Republicans. And you bring up these things about Republicans. Don't you wish that when Nixon was around, there were people that had enough cojones to fight for him? And not just say we Republicans don't fight, because I don't know.
Yeah, the Democrats have always had more discipline, except right after the Civil War, the Republicans in Congress had a lot of discipline, but the Democrats soon overtook them even then in that general era. But the Republicans are just not tough enough. Some are, but not very many of them. And Democrats are just like most left-wing people, are just angrier, more motivated people. Anger gives a lot of psychological relief, to the person who's angry. The Democrats apparently get it, and Republicans don't. The Republicans are more contented to just be calm and quiet. God bless them. I love them, and I will always be a Republican. But They're not angry enough. The Republicans are not angry enough. The Republicans should be absolutely effing furious at what happened during the election, and we're not. I mean, we should be marching in very large numbers all around in the country. We're not, and we should be. Obviously, we're afraid of being attacked by Antifa or by BLM. And it is a frightening thought, but we should be out marching. Lewis, you live near me. I'm ready, my brother. Anytime you want to take to the streets, I'm ready, my brother, to go get on the street.
And
I wear an ankle bracelet, so that kind of makes things complicated.
And he can never take anything seriously.
It's unbelievable. I try to be encouraging, friendly.
I want to march.
Okay, that's you.
You know what? We're going to plan a Beverly Hills march led by Louis Fine and Ben Stein, or Ben Stein and Louis Fine, I should say. But Lindsay, I mean, and Ben, you raise a great point, and it's like these two opposing thoughts you're having. Because on one hand, you're saying Republicans don't do it, but isn't it about time that Republicans did do it? Isn't it about time that if you're a Republican in Chicago or California and they say to you, you can't have 10 people in your house or 5 people in your house for Thanksgiving, and you're a conservative or Republican, you say, screw you. You know what? Come get me, come get my family, and then I'll deal with litigation, as opposed to taking it, which we constantly do. It is the most frustrating thing in the world how much conservatives or Republicans or Trumpicans just take it.
Well, I couldn't agree more, but I think the question is, as we keep saying, what do we do? We're not going to riot. We're not going to break in the windows of stores. We're not going to set anything on fire. We can march and we can litigate. And litigation, and we can write and we can speak. But I think marching and litigation are our best guesses. And eventually we will find a judge who is an honest, law-abiding man or woman who will hear the case and go forward with it. There are many very fine judges. We tend to think that they're all cowardly and lockstep liberals. They're not. Some of them are wonderful people.
Yep. Ben, I gotta just say, because I'm reading, I do read what people write on Parler. I think people are tired of just taking it on the chin.
I couldn't agree more. But with all due respect, my dear friend Judah, what do we do? We're not lawbreakers. We're not lawbreakers. As Martin Luther King Jr. said, I am not going to imitate the ways of my oppressors. I'm not going to turn to violence. That is just not who we are.
Desperate.
Right, but he was a lawbreaker. He distinguished between just laws and unjust laws. And why should we even be debating whether we have 3 or 5 people to join us for Thanksgiving, as if that's a big risk and we're breaking the law, though apparently we would be breaking the law with regard to something like that, including going to church. Do it. Yeah. It's not as if this is not an issue of this does not require a great deal of courage or any kind of physical resistance.
I couldn't agree more. But that's if I may say so, that is a small thing compared with a large march or litigation. I mean, Brown versus Board of Education was not achieved by people having a dinner party at their house, and neither were any other major landmark turning points in American law. And I think we're going to have, as I say, litigation, and we're going to have demonstrations. I live, where I live, just down the block from me, 2 blocks from me. There were, before the election, and even for several days after the election, Trump rallies every single day. Why not have them every day from now on? I mean, why not have them every day from now on? For me, it's very, very convenient. And I don't know exactly where in Beverly Hills you live, but I'm sure we could meet up and eat a Big Mac and have our demonstration. It doesn't have to be a Big Mac. It can just be a banana.
Okay, Lindsay, you've been silent a little bit, so I will get to you. What are people in Indiana? Are people in Indiana going to take this, or are they going to just? Is there a chance for?
So we have a Republican governor. Well, at least he has the letter R behind his name. He instituted lockdowns, mask mandates, fines. He wanted to put people in jail for not wearing masks at one point, and his attorney general had to say, no, let's not do that. So he was facing re-election. And for the first time in history, a libertarian got the most amount of votes against anyone in the governor's race because so many Republicans were fed up with what he'd been doing. He ended up getting reelected, unfortunately. And as soon as he does, he starts ratcheting up all the requirements as far as now businesses, if they don't have specific posters on every door, then they can face a fine. Potentially, it keeps going up every time you don't have the poster and someone narcs on you. People are getting pissed off because they're seeing some people are allowed to go out and protest and do this kind of thing, but then other people have a family member die and they can't have a funeral for that person. They're told, no, it's not safe, but yet they're seeing people, you know, downtown Indianapolis tagging everything, using graffiti, setting things on fire. And people are sick of it. And it's not fair because basically the government's been picking winners and losers, and the people that are obeying the rules are becoming the losers in the situation.
And they're also going bankrupt, the people who are following the rules. They're small business owners. And try to explain to someone who's in their mid to late 60s, as I am, when you've exhausted your savings, you've lost your business because you can't run your business. What do you do for retirement?
That's
what do you do?
Lewis.
Rack.
Wait. I'm sorry. Go ahead. I must speak to Lewis.
Please.
Lewis, you know where I live. How far away are you from me?
Within walking distance.
We have to get together this very evening and discuss what you just said. I want you to come over to my house. Come on, we'll discuss.
No mask.
No masks.
We live in a maskless house. And but Lindsay brings up a great point, you know, because she brought up that name and how we get trapped into this. Why do we have these rhinos? And Trump had said it the best. No matter what, Democrats stick together. Republicans cannot or conservatives or anything. You know, as much as I was talking to Remzo before the show, I might not always agree with Rand Paul, but he's a libertarian. But you know what? He's had Trump's back. He's had Trump's back for 4 years. He's stuck up for Trump. This is a guy that had his what was it, like attacked by his crazy neighbor, and and it's like, where are all those people coming? Remzo, it just drives me mad. I can't even express myself about it.
Man, I stopped looking at the trees in spite of the forest a long time ago. This has nothing to do with Democrats and Republicans. And I stopped really caring about elections a while ago because my life isn't really affected by who's in the Oval Office. It's affected by my governor. It's affected by my local city council. I think we should stop paying taxes because this has nothing to do with Democrats and Republicans. This is the state versus you. This is the biggest monopoly of violence on earth. You look at Gretchen Whitmer. She's closing down barbers who have to cut hair to live, and she's threatening to throw old men in jail. That's not just. Dietrich Bonhoeffer watched the entire German church take out the Old Testament because Hitler called it Jewish mysticism and propaganda. He went ahead and took down a large tenet of Christianity. Then what they did was they put in giant swastikas in all the churches. And all they did was they just took it. And that's how you have it right now. You have people just taking it. There's got to be a point where you can break the law and be nonviolent. And last I checked, most taxes are voluntary. Yeah, you could voluntarily go to jail, but they can't catch all of us. If we all just stop paying taxes, how are they supposed to pay for their crap? Come and get all of us. We'll overflow the prisons.
I'm again, as I've said a million times on this show, I'm the oldest in this group by quite a lot, and I guarantee you, they will find you and they will make your life hell if you.
Well, guess what? I'll be naked and oiled up, so they've got to fight me.
Okay.
What are you, Kurt Vonnegut? You're not going to pay taxes?
Why not?
No, I think we can. I say, look. Being a lawyer is not that incredibly difficult to do. People become lawyers, go into court. I don't know how many federal judges there are in the United States, but thousands, I think, at least many hundreds. And we could find a couple of judges who will go our way, and we can push it till it gets to the Supreme Court, and then see if it goes our way. And if it does, then we go forward. Now, what are we specifically going to sue about? To me, the obvious and most easy one is right to assemble, right to worship. The fact that was just cut off with no reason at all that I could see was just an outrage against the Constitution. Why don't we pursue that? Our Larry Klayman, very, very close friend of Judas and mine, is pursuing that. Why don't we have one of those cases in every state?
Ben, my question to you though is, I know when you speak of this stuff, you're speaking out of it because you truly do have faith. But what Remzo is sort of saying is, as we watch people listen to the people listening, I can't stand celebrity. None of it. This is nothing. When I see Lori Loughlin, when I see go to prison for an idiotic thing to do with getting her kid into college, and Clapper and Comey and none of these people getting into trouble, none of us trust the judicial system anymore.
Yeah, free Aunt Becky.
Yeah, but free Aunt Becky, she's going to jail for 5 months, and James Comey and McCabe, who lied and did all these things. So it's like, I get what you're saying is, but it's so, I mean, how do us have any faith? How does a Lindsay or a Remzo, who are way years younger than the other three of us, have faith in the judicial system, sir?
Man, I never had faith in the system.
The people who got the landmark decisions in the civil rights cases in the 50s and 60s, I got turned down, slapped down over and over and over again. They just kept coming back, and eventually the Times allowed them, not the New York Times, the Times of the man's history, allowed them to get a court that would go in their favor. We just have to keep at it and not give up. And I with all due respect, I'm kind of fascinated about the idea of oiling up and so forth, but I don't think oiling up is really the solution, although it's...
No, you have to oil up after you're naked. You can't just oil up with your clothes.
Right, and I live very near West Hollywood. I'm sure there are many people who would like your suggestion a lot, but I'm not one of them. And
if you just tuned in, you are listening to The World According to Ben Stein, one of the funnest shows to ever do on the internet. Remzo, the image of you and your cat's oiled up. Thank you.
No, the cats are not oiled up. The cats have run out by now.
Please tell people where you could find us.
First of all, Boychuk, SOS. We are not oiled up and naked. It's safe to come out if you're here, Ben Boychuk. But anyway, hey, go ahead and make sure you can go ahead and hit the subscribe bell so that way you never miss an update for an episode. This way you get the notifications to know whenever a new episode of The World According to Ben Stein goes live. You can find us across social media at The World According to Ben Stein. And if you want to engage with Ben and the crew, go ahead and have a great time over at Parler. You can go ahead and follow Ben at Ben Stein. And please, while you're here, a 5-star rating and review. It costs you nothing. It means everything to us. On iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, Spotify. You know how Al Gore's amazing internet works, so why not make it work for us? That's all I've got to say.
And well put. Wait, I think Mr. Lewis wants to talk.
I just want to welcome everybody back to The World According to Ben Stein, America's humble servant. Lewis, yes, this is our speed round, so go ahead.
Yeah, 2 very quick things. One, a lot of people don't know that was all dubbed. That's not even Remzo.
Oh, see, that's incredible.
So the second point is,
show you respect and love.
Are you kidding me? The guy, he can lip sync like a champ. It's not even his language.
Okay,
second point, you talked about Martin Luther King.
Yes.
Here's the difference between then and now. Not only did he have morality on his side, he had a culturally literate population, a majority of which understood and was familiar with the language he was invoking, namely, all men are endowed by their creator with certain unalienable, that's what it says in the document, others like to say inalienable, rights. We have a culture today that is not familiar with, that is illiterate concerning the Declaration of Independence, the Constitution, and our, as I said on a previous show, civil religion. It's much harder to make a moral argument to an ignorant populace that is kept ignorant, not through a conspiracy, but through acts of omission by a public school system and other public institutions that are abhorrent. I'm done.
There are 2 things. You said there are going to be 2 things.
The first one was about Remzo.
Oh,
that whole thing was dubbed. Unbelievable. He doesn't even speak a word of English.
But
it's done by Sir Michael Caine.
In all seriousness, Ben, he raises a great point. You're hearkening back to a time when people were studied, knew things. you're having, you brought up on Parler the other day about when is the DOJ going to get involved? Like, where is Bill Barr? I really want to put Bill, how you and Lewis are going to march later on Beverly Hills. I want to put Bill Barr on milk cartons. I want to put Bill Barr on milk cartons and say missing since,
I fine with me. I think it's a great idea.
Maybe
yummy pretzels.
Yes, let's put Bill Barr on milk cartons. But Lindsay, what is your thought on this? I mean, how do you? Is it just forget about the elect? I mean, do you think there's just cause? You're being somebody in the legal system that fights for this stuff.
Well, definitely, especially for the religion aspect. There have been lawsuits in several states now, and some of them have actually won because what was happening was the state governor would say, you can have, they would close down churches, but then they would allow like 100 people onto Target, and there was no limits there. And there were specific carve-outs which did not meet the tests that they needed in order to go ahead and restrict those freedoms. So I think there is some merit there to the fact that people are suing, and I think that is slowly going to start to change things. But Lewis is right. People don't know anything about the Constitution or their government. Every year you see the same poll asking what are the 3 branches of government, and the majority of people can't name the 3 branches, let alone what the First Amendment stands for, second, third, and fourth. And so we have a generation that doesn't even know their rights. They don't know where they come from. They don't know what the actual law is on anything. So it's very hard to convince them of, the opposite of what they think is true, because there's no like actual concept or context for them to put it all into.
Very frightening, very frightening. I have one of my very close friends, beautiful, tall woman, very, very lovely, poetic, extremely fine writer from Minnesota, she's 31 years old, had never heard of the Revolutionary War, did not know what it was about, what caused it, who was on the different sides. Just a 31-year-old American woman, not an immigrant, full-grown American. And she said she thought that was not unusual among people of her generation in her town. I mean,
well, I'll tell you what, last night I watched with my daughter, and I'm not joking, Young Mr. Lincoln, 1939, I believe, Henry Fonda, directed by John Ford, and they're in Springfield, and Revolutionary War veterans are marching. It's Independence Day, and he's with a group of men, and Lincoln takes off his stovetop stuffing. I'm talking like Judah now.
Okay, go ahead. We got it.
It's a big hat.
Okay, go ahead.
And my daughter said, "Why is he doing that?" And I said, out of respect. Do you see? And I said, did you see when Lincoln did it? What did the other men standing next to him do? She said, they took off their hats and they put it on their hearts. I said, exactly. And she learned more in that movie, especially at the end, where the mob is cheering him because he's won this murder case. The same mob that wanted to lynch these 2 defendants, his clients. And I said, do you notice that Lincoln acknowledges the crowd, but he doesn't smile. He doesn't clap. He just looks at them. I said, this mob that's cheering him, what did they try to do before? And she said, they tried to hang the 2 boys. I said, that's right. A mob doesn't think. A mob doesn't care. So she learned more about our country in a movie than a 31-year-old who doesn't even know there was, 1, a Revolutionary War, and 2, there were veterans who were honored as such by Abraham Lincoln.
And it's scary, Ben, you bring up that there are tons of there, and I think it's been done purposely, to be honest with you, because when you don't teach history, it's the best way to manipulate people. When history is not taught, that's the best form of manipulation. Remzo, you've been a little silent, so I want to hear from you.
I mean, everyone thinks that we're living in 1984, but the thing is, we've been living in a brave new world for the longest time. How is it we could have the most historically and economically illiterate generations in American history, but we have access to the internet and all the knowledge of the world at the touch of our fingertips? This is a choice. Part of me thinks we kind of deserve it. We let this happen. I say we don't pay taxes. Other people are saying we burn down, Main Street. It's at the point where you can only blame so much.
Why don't we read? I mean, one of my other friends was visiting me. I'm very lucky to have quite a lot of space, and I have a very, very old, not original, but very old copy of The Decline and Fall of the Roman Empire. And she started to read it, and she was just fascinated by it. She's a student at Pepperdine University, Pepperdine College here in LA. She was fascinated by it. Had never heard of it.
I have a question, Ben.
I just thought, why don't these people read more? We've just got to get more reading. We don't need rioting. We don't need tax resistance. Just reading more would be a huge help.
Ben, I have a question. What do you think is the greater sin? To be illiterate and know it and not to learn, or to be literate and not to read?
Literate and not to read.
He asked Ben.
I don't think either of them is much of a sin.
Well, we're the same tribe.
But I think that's a very good point. That's a very good point. Both of these women are perfectly good readers, and I don't know why they don't do it. I don't know why they don't do it.
Lindsay, I want to ask you, because Lewis actually raised a really good point without realizing it, which is it's not just we've lost, a generation has really lost a certain, when I was in Temple and I was a kid, a man went to shake my hand and I was sitting down, and he shook my hand and he said good Sabbath or good Shabbos, and my father smacked me against the head and said, always stand up when a man shakes your hand.
Especially an older man.
What?
Especially an older man.
Especially an older man, but it taught me a lesson anytime somebody, and you're of a generation, how many, and I don't want to get prying, I don't need to know about your private life, but you've been on dates, I'm sure you're married. How often has a man opened up a door for you? The car door for you?
I have valets. I mean, most of my meals are at the Beverly Hills Hotel, which is only about a very short distance from me. And the valets open the door, so they open the door for me.
No, Ben, I was asking Lindsay.
Oh, I'm sorry. I beg your pardon.
When she's on dates.
That's right.
That's okay.
There's a short and long answer. The short answer is a lot of people will do it on the first couple dates, but very few will do it on multiple dates and continue on every single time you do that. And so you can find out who's kind of putting on a show to try and put on this persona that they're this gentleman and they respect you. And then, 2 days later, they're not doing it anymore. And they just assume now it's fine to stop. But it is a rarity for people to do that all the time. And I was in DC last year walking with someone down the street, and he got mad at me because I was walking closer to the street. He was like, a woman should never walk closer to the street. Yeah. It's dangerous. He's like, my mom taught me to always be on the right side of the woman if she's walking this way. And I had never, ever heard that before. And I thought that was just a really nice thing for him to be aware of and think about. I don't necessarily need him to protect me, but at the same time, it's a very nice gesture, and it shows that they are thinking about someone other than themselves.
Just so you know, and I could be corrected.
Very good point, Lindsay.
It comes from when the horses were coming down the street, they would kick water, and it was to make sure that the woman didn't get the dirty water on them. I could be mistaken.
Cars in DC suck too.
I think
you're throwing in a little Sir Walter Raleigh with that.
Can we get back to the main point that's going on here?
Yes, sir.
Living in an America which is going through a coup d'etat foisted upon us by the media, the left, Black Lives Matter, Antifa, or as my sister calls it, Antifa. We're living in a very depressing time, a very, very depressing time, and we have to pull ourselves together and fight back against it, even if it's just doing this. That's more than most people are doing. The people united will never be defeated. We have to do whatever we can.
Oh, wait, you just did a Dylan.
What?
You just did the hurricane. People united. Come on. Where you just did Bob Dylan, you're the hurricane.
No sempre vanquera. La Raza, you need it. No sempre vanquera.
By the way, just
you need it. No sempre vanquera.
Remzo, what's he saying?
Don't pay your taxes.
No, I'm saying the people united will never be defeated.
And one of our biggest fans said on Twitter, said bye-bye to Twitter. He actually puts his money, he walks the walk and talks the talk. He's constantly going on the road and doing these things and fighting the good fight and trying to get to courts. And, and we need a lot of, I don't want to use his name because I don't know if he wants his name put out, But there are some really solid citizens, Ben, like you're saying, that are fighting the fight. But what Lewis brought up, and I don't know if this generation has been taught. I mean, I don't think it's just it has been taught that there is action. I mean, maybe I'm wrong.
I don't know what this generation has been taught. As far as I can tell, they mostly taught to ask for money from older men. That's the main thing I think.
Enough of the millennial bashing. Who taught us all this?
I didn't.
It had to come from somewhere.
I guess I did. Yeah,
I'm not bashing generations. If the choice is between security and freedom, people who are unaware of their rights or no interest in their rights are more inclined to choose quote unquote security.
Well, then they're going to lose them both. They're going to lose both.
But they're not aware of that.
Yeah, well, it's an extremely depressing situation, and I think we can do whatever we can to make it better.
Well, that's why we're here
on TV or on the internet, rather, every night that we possibly can, and getting out the message with some levity and making sure people hear us. If we say it over and over again, at least a few people hear it. They'll tell their friends. They'll tell their friends, and pretty soon a lot of people will be hearing it and will believe it.
I like that. You're right. That's the best. I mean, as of this moment right now, 8 o'clock, 11 o'clock, wherever you are, Arizona, I'm never sure what time they are.
It's a twilight zone.
Yeah. But no, you bring up a great point. All we could do is what we could do. And you and Lewis march on Beverly Hills. I will gladly film you guys doing that. But as we're running out of time, Ben, I really do. You know what? You still having optimism gives me optimism. That we can win this battle.
I don't have with all due respect, America has never been defeated yet. Warren Buffett, who I'm very blessed to call my friend, has said to me many times, we've been through far worse than this, and we get through it. I'm not sure that we have been through far worse than this politically and domestically, but if we keep working at it, all we can do is work at it. We can just work at it. None of us is the Lord Jesus Christ. None of us is able to accomplish miracles by himself. We just keep working at it as a group, and the group gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and we just keep working at it.
And by the way, just for the record, I'm not bashing on millennials. I'm asking if
I know, I was just joking.
I know you are. I just, just to the other millennials listening, I don't want them to think I'm a millennial basher, because that's the easy thing to do. But I want to thank everybody for being here.
Thank you to Judah for arranging it.
We will be back. We'll be back very soon. That's all the time we have, though, to the people on YouTube. And thank you for all your comments. Thank you. But you can find us on YouTube at The World According to Ben Stein. You could also find us on Facebook at The World According to Ben Stein. Remzo, why don't you tell us all those other places that people could download our podcasts?
iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, Google Play, you name it, you think of it. If you can find podcasts there, you can find The World According to Ben Stein there.
Lewis, why don't you tell people, in all seriousness, where they could find you?
L-Fine, F-E-I-N, on Parler.
And he did it. Good job. Remzo, where can people find you?
I can't even talk right now.
In a cage on the border.
All naked and oiled up because I didn't pay my taxes. At Remso, R-A-M-S-O, Remso on Parler.
And be nice to him. Be kind to our Remzo, because he is a true champ, but he's a good man. And Lindsay, why don't you tell people where they could find you, because you're building your following on Parler, but also what you do quickly, because it's really cool.
On Parler, it's at Lindsay Marie. Twitter is at Lindsay Marie LP. And I do a lot of things, political commentary, and also criminal justice policy analyst.
Are you a lawyer, Lindsay?
I did not go to law school.
You should. You're a young woman. You have plenty of time to go.
I thought about it and didn't want to go into that much debt. So I went into politics instead.
Okay, God bless you.
And on that note, I want to thank everybody for listening to The World According to Ben Stein. And of course, America's humble servant, Benjamin Jeremy Stein. We salute you. We salute all the people that have been listening to us tonight. Thank you for your patience. Thank you for your kindness. Thank you for everything. We will be back very soon. Stay tuned. Thank you for listening to The World According